Friendships are rarely accidental. Beneath the laughter, shared experiences, and casual interactions, there exists an unspoken architecture, a set of implicit rules that govern how we connect, respond, and sustain one another. Chief among these is the rule of emotional reciprocity, a subtle yet powerful force that shapes the quality and longevity of our friendships. Even when we do not articulate it aloud, we intuitively measure the balance of give and take, who listens, who supports, who celebrates, and who carries weight in times of difficulty. This silent contract underlies our sense of fairness, satisfaction, and trust in the relationship, often more profoundly than any overt expression of friendship. Emotional reciprocity is not a ledger to be kept with precision. It is not a tally of favors or a calculation of effort. Rather, it is an intuitive balance of attention, care, and responsiveness. When we feel seen, supported, and valued, we are motivated to return the gesture. Not out of obligation, but because mutual responsiveness nourishes the relational bond. This reciprocity is what makes a friend reliable, comforting, and trustworthy. Conversely, when emotional exchange is consistently one-sided, subtle dissatisfaction creeps in. The friend who gives more than they receive may feel drained, taken for granted, or invisible, even in a relationship that is otherwise joyful. Over time, these imbalances, unacknowledged and unspoken, can erode trust and intimacy, quietly reshaping the friendship in ways we may not fully recognize until tension emerges. Understanding this unspoken rule requires recognizing the fluidity of give and take. Reciprocity does not always mean equal effort in every moment. Life circumstances, personal capacity, and emotional bandwidth fluctuate. One friend may carry more weight during a period of crisis, while the other may reciprocate in ways that are less visible but equally meaningful. Remembering details, offering insight, or simply providing steady presence. Emotional reciprocity is about relational attunement. It is an ongoing calibration of attention, empathy, and engagement that creates a sense of relational equilibrium, even amid inevitable asymmetries. Interestingly, emotional reciprocity is not limited to support in times of hardship. It is equally present in joy, celebration, and affirmation. Celebrating a friend's successes, acknowledging their achievements, or offering genuine praise reinforces the unspoken contract of mutual recognition. When these expressions of support and care are withheld or delayed, subtle tension arises. We feel the absence of acknowledgement almost as keenly as the absence of help in moments of difficulty. This dual aspect of emotional reciprocity, responding both to struggle and to triumph, is what sustains relational vitality over time, transforming friendship from a series of interactions into a shared emotional ecosystem. The rule of emotional reciprocity also interacts with self-awareness and reflection. To maintain balance, we must first recognize our own contributions and the contributions of others. Are we listening attentively? Are we offering support without judgment? Are we responsive to cues of need, even when they are unspoken? Likewise, we must observe whether our friends are attuned to our own needs and boundaries. This ongoing assessment is not about tallying debts, but about nurturing awareness, cultivating a relational consciousness that keeps both parties engaged, respected, and emotionally fulfilled. Moreover, emotional reciprocity fosters resilience in friendship. Challenges, misunderstandings, or distance are inevitable. It is the history of mutual care and responsiveness that provides a buffer against conflict. When each friend has experienced being seen, supported, and valued repeatedly, minor lapses or tensions are less likely to destabilize the relationship. The bond is reinforced not by perfection, but by a cumulative pattern of attentive, responsive engagement, a silent assurance that each person can rely on the other over time. Importantly, cultivating emotional reciprocity is both relational and intentional. It requires active listening, empathetic engagement, and a willingness to respond to needs beyond surface appearances. It calls for reflection on our own behaviors. Are we giving in ways that are meaningful? Are we sensitive to the unspoken cues that indicate a friend's emotional state? It also calls for courage, acknowledging moments when we feel under-supported and expressing them thoughtfully to maintain balance rather than allowing resentment to fester silently. Ultimately, the unspoken rule of emotional reciprocity reveals a profound truth about human connection. Friendships are sustained not merely by shared interests or enjoyable experiences, but by the ongoing, responsive investment in one another's emotional life. It is the pattern of attentive engagement, mutual care, and thoughtful acknowledgement that transforms friendship from a casual relationship into a resilient, emotionally nourishing bond. So, if you want to honor the hidden dynamics that shape your friendships, begin by observing the flow of emotional give and take. Notice where you are attentive, where you respond, and where you may unintentionally fall short. Reflect on the ways your friends contribute to your emotional life and seek opportunities to reciprocate thoughtfully. Because it is through conscious attention to this unspoken rule, through empathy, presence, and mutual responsiveness, that friendships evolve from companionship into relationships that are deeply sustaining, profoundly trusted, and enduring across the challenges of life. Emotional reciprocity is not just a rule, it is the invisible heartbeat of lasting connection. Friendship, at its most profound, is built not only on shared experiences and laughter, but also on an unspoken agreement to allow vulnerability to exist safely between two people. We rarely articulate this rule, yet it is central to the depth and resilience of our connections. Shared vulnerability is the silent promise that we will allow ourselves to be seen, not just in our triumphs and joys, but in our uncertainties, fears, and failures. It is a quiet understanding that we can bring our whole selves to the friendship, even the parts that feel messy, fragile, or unworthy. Without this shared openness, even the closest friendships risk remaining superficial, rich in history, but poor in emotional intimacy. The paradox of vulnerability is that it requires courage precisely because it is risky. To reveal our doubts, insecurities, or private struggles is to expose ourselves to potential judgment, disappointment, or rejection. And yet, in a true friendship, this risk is tempered by trust. We instinctively test the waters, offering a subtle confession, a hint of fear, a quiet admission of weakness. We watch how it is received. Will it be met with empathy, curiosity, and understanding, or with dismissal, criticism, or indifference? The way our vulnerability is received becomes a signal, often unspoken, of the friendship's depth and safety. Vulnerability in friendship is not about dramatic confessions or emotional excess. It is about the small, deliberate moments of authenticity. Sharing a fear, a regret, or a personal struggle is often enough to invite reciprocity. When one friend models courage in openness, it encourages the other to do the same. This creates a rhythm of emotional exchange, a flow of trust that strengthens connection. Over time, the habit of small intentional disclosures allows friendships to evolve from companionship into a profoundly supportive emotional ecosystem. Yet, vulnerability is often constrained by fear, habit, or assumption. Many of us hold back, thinking our friends already know how we feel, or fearing that we might burden them with our struggles. We may also avoid expressing certain thoughts or feelings to maintain harmony, especially if the topic is sensitive, emotionally charged, or complex. In doing so, we preserve comfort in the short term, but limit the relational growth that comes from mutual emotional exposure. The friendship continues, but it may lack a dimension of authenticity that could make it transformative. The psychology behind shared vulnerability is deeply tied to human need for connection. We crave understanding and validation, yet we also fear judgment. When a friend responds with empathy, patience, and attention, it communicates, "I see you, you are understood, you matter." This response validates not only our experiences, but also our capacity to be seen fully. When vulnerability is met with indifference or criticism, it signals relational risk, teaching us to retreat or mask our feelings in future interactions. Thus, the unspoken rule of shared vulnerability functions as a measure of relational safety, a guideline that often operates below conscious awareness. Furthermore, vulnerability fosters growth, not just in the friendship, but in ourselves. By opening up about our fears, we confront them more consciously, giving ourselves space to reflect, learn, and adapt. The friend who listens attentively offers not only emotional support but also a mirror for self-examination. In this way, vulnerability becomes a vehicle for both intimacy and personal development, transforming friendship into a dynamic, evolving relationship rather than a static bond of convenience or habit. Shared vulnerability also intersects with trust, reciprocity, and respect for boundaries. It requires careful attunement, recognizing when a friend is emotionally receptive, when timing is appropriate, and when support is sustainable. It is an ethical practice as much as an emotional one, balancing honesty with sensitivity, disclosure with discretion. When handled thoughtfully, it fosters resilience. When neglected, it can create misunderstandings or distance. Ultimately, the unspoken rule of shared vulnerability reminds us that friendship is not merely a social arrangement, but an emotional partnership. It asks us to risk imperfection, to step into the space of uncertainty, and to offer our authentic selves without guarantee of reward. Yet it is precisely this willingness to be seen in our fullness that transforms ordinary companionship into extraordinary intimacy. Vulnerability is both the test and the foundation of enduring friendship. It reveals the strength of trust and deepens the mutual understanding that sustains connection over time. So, if you want to honor the hidden rules that shape your friendships, begin by noticing the spaces where you hold back, where fear or habit prevents you from sharing your true thoughts and feelings. Experiment with careful, thoughtful disclosure, observing how your friend responds. Recognize that each act of openness, no matter how small, builds a rhythm of trust and invites reciprocal authenticity. Because it is only when vulnerability is shared, gently, deliberately, and safely, that friendships evolve from surface-level connection into deeply sustaining relationships. To embrace this unspoken rule is to embrace the full potential of human intimacy, transforming what is familiar into what is profoundly meaningful. Every friendship carries invisible boundaries, quietly shaping the way we interact, the moments we share, and the emotional terrain we navigate together. These unseen lines around time, energy, emotional exposure, and personal space are rarely discussed, yet they are essential to sustaining connection. We intuitively respect them, often without conscious thought, because violating them can create tension, resentment, or subtle disengagement. The unspoken rule of respecting unseen boundaries is one of the most powerful forces in friendship, governing the balance between closeness and autonomy, intimacy and self-preservation. Boundaries in friendship are not limitations on care or affection. Rather, they are frameworks that allow both individuals to thrive without feeling depleted or overextended. They define how much emotional energy one can safely invest, the level of support one can offer without sacrificing personal well-being, and the space needed for each person to maintain individuality. For instance, one friend may need quiet solitude after a long week, while another may require frequent check-ins to feel connected. Respecting these differences, even when unspoken, is fundamental to relational harmony. Over time, intuitive boundary respect becomes a silent contract, creating trust and mutual comfort in the friendship. One of the challenges is that these boundaries are rarely verbalized. We assume our friends will understand our limits without explanation, and in turn, we interpret their behavior through our own lens, sometimes misreading signals. Perhaps a friend does not respond immediately to a message because they are overwhelmed, but we interpret it as disinterest. Perhaps we push for time together, unaware that our friend is mentally exhausted. These small misunderstandings accumulate when boundaries are left unspoken, subtly shaping perceptions of availability, attentiveness, or commitment. By bringing awareness to boundaries, both our own and our friends', we reduce the risk of misinterpretation and preserve relational equilibrium. Respecting unseen boundaries also involves attuning to the rhythm of friendship, noticing when to step forward and when to step back. This attunement requires observation, empathy, and reflection. How does your friend respond to emotional disclosure? Are there topics they avoid? How do they react to shared time or demands on their attention? By becoming conscious of these cues, we navigate the friendship with sensitivity rather than assumption. We learn to give space when needed, offer support without overwhelming, and honor the emotional and practical rhythms that sustain the relationship. Importantly, unseen boundaries are not static. They shift with life circumstances, stress, and personal growth. A friend who once welcomed long conversations may need brevity during a stressful period. Another friend who valued frequent interaction may develop a preference for independent space. The unspoken rule requires flexibility, the awareness that boundaries are dynamic, and the willingness to adjust our behavior in response to evolving needs. Respecting these changes signals empathy, attentiveness, and a commitment to the friendship's long-term vitality. The consequences of violating unseen boundaries are subtle but powerful. Overstepping can trigger discomfort, resentment, or withdrawal, often without explicit communication. A friend who is consistently asked for more emotional energy than they can give may begin to distance themselves, not out of malice, but from a need for self-preservation. Similarly, failing to honor personal time or limits can unintentionally create pressure and tension. The beauty of friendship lies in its reciprocal nature. Respecting boundaries fosters trust and comfort, while ignoring them risks gradual erosion of connection. Boundaries also intersect with vulnerability and reciprocity, creating a delicate balance between openness and self-protection. Sharing fears, doubts, or personal struggles is essential for intimacy, yet doing so without regard for the other's emotional capacity can be overwhelming. By observing boundaries, we learn when and how to disclose, when to step back, and when to allow silence to speak as powerfully as words. This careful navigation deepens trust, allowing both friends to feel safe, understood, and supported without risking exhaustion or imbalance. Ultimately, the unspoken rule of respecting unseen boundaries teaches that friendship is an ethical as well as emotional practice. It requires self-awareness, empathy, and intentionality. It asks us to honor both our own needs and the needs of those we care about, without judgment or assumption. By doing so, we cultivate friendships that are resilient, balanced, and deeply sustaining. Relationships in which both individuals can flourish, feel secure, and be fully present. So, if you want to honor the hidden rules that shape your friendships, begin by noticing the silent boundaries that exist within your interactions. Reflect on your own limits and capacities, and observe the cues your friends offer about their needs and space. Actively respect these boundaries through thoughtful timing, attuned listening, and empathetic responsiveness, because it is only when unseen boundaries are honored that friendships evolve from casual companionship into enduring connections characterized by trust, balance, and a profound sense of mutual care. Boundaries are not barriers. They are the invisible scaffolding that allows intimacy and freedom to coexist harmoniously. Friendship thrives on more than shared experiences, laughter, and familiarity. It flourishes through the subtle, unspoken acknowledgement that each person's presence, effort, and emotional contributions matter. This is the silent rule of mutual acknowledgement, a principle that governs the emotional currency of friendships, often without being consciously discussed. Recognition, affirmation, and appreciation may seem small or even optional, yet they carry profound weight. When consistently expressed even subtly, they validate the relationship and strengthen the bond. When neglected, they create invisible fissures, eroding trust and intimacy over time. Understanding this rule is essential for cultivating friendships that are resilient, meaningful, and emotionally nourishing. Mutual acknowledgement operates on multiple levels. At its simplest, it is the recognition of presence, noticing that a friend is there, that their life continues outside the sphere of interaction, and that their experiences hold significance. This may manifest in the small acts of remembering a birthday, celebrating an achievement, or expressing gratitude for a kind gesture. But acknowledgement also runs deeper. It involves emotional attunement to the friend's joys, struggles, and personal evolution. It is the awareness that every friendship is a dialogue of existence, where each person's life and growth are meaningful to the other. When unacknowledged, these silent omissions are felt subtly, perhaps, but powerfully, leaving one to question their value or significance within the friendship. The psychology behind this rule is rooted in the human need for validation and belonging. We instinctively seek confirmation that we matter, that our efforts are seen, and that our existence has resonance in the lives of those we care about. In friendship, mutual acknowledgement provides this confirmation without the need for explicit conversation or negotiation. It communicates, "I notice you, I appreciate you, your presence is meaningful to me." Over time, repeated acts of recognition create a shared emotional history that strengthens trust, deepens intimacy, and solidifies the friendship's foundation. Yet acknowledgement is rarely perfect or automatic. Life's demands, distractions, and personal challenges can interfere with our ability to consistently express appreciation or recognition. A friend may feel unnoticed not because the affection is lacking, but because the subtleties of recognition are easily overlooked in everyday life. It is in these moments that conscious attention becomes critical. Observing when a friend's contribution, presence, or effort has gone unseen, and taking deliberate steps to acknowledge it. These gestures need not be grandiose. Even a simple expression of gratitude, a thoughtful message, or attentive listening can communicate profound recognition. Mutual acknowledgement also functions as a silent barometer of relational health. Friends who consistently recognize one another's efforts, achievements, and emotional labor create an environment where both parties feel valued, understood, and emotionally safe. Conversely, friendships in which acknowledgement is sparse, inconsistent, or absent tend to carry hidden tension. Unspoken frustrations emerge, small resentments accumulate, and a sense of invisibility may take root. Awareness of this dynamic allows us to take intentional steps to restore balance, demonstrating that even subtle affirmations can have transformative effects on the quality of connection. This rule is intertwined with other unspoken rules of friendship: emotional reciprocity, shared vulnerability, and respect for boundaries. Recognition is itself a form of reciprocity, validating the emotional investment one friend makes in the other. It reinforces the safety necessary for vulnerability, encouraging openness by signaling that one's experiences, emotions, and contributions are valued. It also respects boundaries by acknowledging the friend's presence and effort without imposing additional expectations or pressure. In this way, mutual acknowledgement is a linchpin of relational equilibrium, sustaining the friendship in both ordinary and challenging circumstances. Mutual acknowledgement, however, is not merely about observing and responding to achievements or kindnesses. It also involves empathy and attentiveness to emotional nuance. A friend's quiet struggles, subtle expressions of need, or understated victories often require sensitivity to detect. Acknowledging these moments communicates care and attentiveness, signaling that the friendship operates on a level of emotional depth beyond mere convenience or routine. It is a practice of presence, in which the act of noticing itself becomes a profound expression of love and commitment. Ultimately, the unspoken rule of mutual acknowledgement reminds us that friendship is not only about shared experiences, but also about being seen and validated in the complexity of our human existence. It teaches us that the quality of connection is measured not solely by time spent together or laughter shared, but by the conscious recognition of one another's value, effort, and presence. It is a reminder that friendship flourishes not in perfection, but in attentiveness, appreciation, and care. So, if you want to honor the hidden rules that shape your friendships, start by observing the ways your friends contribute to your life, their presence, support, achievements, and quiet efforts. Take deliberate moments to recognize, affirm, and express gratitude for them. Notice the subtleties of their emotional world and acknowledge them thoughtfully, because it is only through consistent, intentional acknowledgement that friendships move beyond routine companionship into bonds of profound trust, intimacy, and enduring connection. Recognition is not merely polite. It is the heartbeat of friendship, a silent testament to the truth that every friend matters and every contribution is valued.